If you're looking for the versatility and adjustability of a coilover but would prefer to keep things as budget friendly as possible, well then the SR Performance V2 coilovers here for the 94 to 04 solid rear axle Mustang certainly be an awesome choice. Now the V2s will pack a monotube design along with 16-way adjustability and will lower the car anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, allowing prospective buyers out there to kind of fine-tune their ideal ride height or just simply slam the car to the ground if that's what you're into. Price point's gonna live in that mid $700 range, and the install, according to the site, will get a soft 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. Take about 4 hours or so to complete from start to finish, as we'll show you guys a little later in the video. But first up, what do you say we talk about height adjustability, which I personally think is the biggest attraction when checking out a coilover as opposed to a traditional static spring setup. Now the V2 coils that we have here again from SR are gonna drop the car anywhere from 1 to 3 inches depending on your preference. Now again, this will allow you to go a little bit lower than stock or just basically slam the car to the ground or anything in between. In fact, it's a great opportunity for you guys to check out the customer submitted images on the site if you haven't done so already. There's new Edge owners out there going pretty mild. There's guys out there going very wild with their drop and really everything in between. So it's a great way to get a sense of what these things are capable of from a lowering standpoint. But in addition to that height adjustability, the SR Performance coilovers here are also gonna deliver that 16-way dampening adjustment, meaning you can either soften or stiffen the ride depending on your personal preference or your driving style. And to do so, all you really need to do here is just turn this little knob at the top of the coilover from soft to hard and anything in between. Now this is great if you're going to the drag strip, for instance, and you want to soften up the fronts, maybe firm up those rears, help promote that weight transfer, or if you're going to hit some autocross, road course type stuff, you can kind of firm up all 4 corners and just really tighten the car up all around and really just play with things. That's a nice thing about going with an adjustable coilover like this. It gives you some adjustment, it gives you something to mess with, and really, again, fine tune your ride quality depending on how you like your car to feel. Another big thing to point out is that monotube design that I mentioned earlier, which is kind of rare to find in such a budget-friendly option. Now, if you're not familiar, a monotube shock or strut is typically used on higher-end dampers or coilover kits, as the design itself offers a more consistent performance, and that's why it's very popular in the performance application world. Also guys, another thing to consider, monotube designs are typically a little bit more durable in the long run as well. So again, you're getting a lot of nice features baked in to a very affordable set of coilovers here at the V2. Now, as far as what's actually included here, guys, you can see a majority of the kit is out on the table with me. Your 2 front strut assemblies are already pre-installed for you, or pre-assembled, I should say. That's very nice because at that point, you're just simply removing the factory assembly, installing this in reverse order. No need to mess with any spring compressors. You're also getting your rear springs here as well with the adjustable collars, and of course some rear shocks to go along with it all. You're also getting some wrenches here, spanner wrenches they're called. Those are going to be used to adjust your collars on the actual shock and strut body itself, and ultimately that will either help you adjust your preload with the spring or of course your ride height here with the coilover. Finally guys, again, we keep talking about these nice features baked into a very affordable design. They're also kicking in a billet aluminum top hat with your built-in caster camber plate. Again, nice feature here, and that's basically gonna make these things as turnkey as it gets when it comes time for the installation. Speaking of which, now we wanna show you just what it takes to get the SR Performance V2 coilovers installed on your SN95 at home. And to do so, here's that detailed walkthrough we promised you earlier, along with a quick tool breakdown.
The tools used for this install are 3/8 impact gun, 1/2-inch impact gun, a pry bar, a 19mm wrench, an 18mm wrench, a 24mm socket, 19mm socket, 14mm socket, 15mm socket, 5mm Allen key, a 3/8 ratchet, a clip removal tool, a small flathead screwdriver, and a roll of electrical tape. So the first step of this install is going to be to get the front end of your vehicle up off the ground and pull the front wheels. This will give you the access to remove your caliper and your rotor. Once you do that, then you can start disassembling the rest of the front suspension to get your front spring out. Next, I'm going to unhook the sway bar end link, and then I'm going to put some support underneath the lower control arm while I disconnect the shock. Now I put a floor jack underneath my lower control arm to support my spring while I disconnect my shock assembly here at the front. This is going to keep the spring from unloading uncontrollably while you're unbolting the strut assembly from the knuckle. Now I'm going to use a little bit of leverage to get underneath the coil spring, push down on the lower control arm, and remove the spring. With everything out of the way on the bottom, the next step is going to be to remove the strut from the car to make room for our coilover assembly. And now you can install your new coilover. Now I'm going to use the provided shims on either side of the knuckle into the collar for the coilover assembly to take up all the space in between. Now that you've got your knuckle and your coilover assembly bolted together, you can put your ABS plate back on, reroute your wire, and reconnect your sway bar end link. Now you can throw your rotor and your caliper back on. Make all your height adjustments when you get your alignment done, and you're all good to go. To get started here in the rear of the vehicle, I have the car up in the air and I have the rear differential supported on jack stands or pole jacks. Next, what I'm going to do is disconnect the shocks and the quad shocks to lower the rear differential down far enough to get the springs to come out of the car. Finally, I'm going to unbolt my upper quad shock and then lower my rear differential down to get my springs out. Now I'm just going to use a pry bar to pull back on my spring and get it out of the vehicle. Now I'm going to use a clip tool, remove the 4 clips that hold this plastic retaining panel in, and remove the back panel before I can pull the sides in. Once you have this off, you can repeat the same on the other side. Now you can install your new shock. Now I'm going to use a 5mm Allen socket to hold my shock while I tighten up the nut. Now I need to transfer my rubber isolators from my factory springs to my new lowering springs for the rear. And I'm going to do that by putting them on top of the spring and installing them with a little bit of electrical tape to hold them in place. I'm going to leave my springs at their lowest setting to make it a little easier to get it on the vehicle and make all my adjustments afterwards. Now I can set my new lowering spring onto the perch in the rear and raise my diff back up into place. Now that I've got the rear differential raised up into place and the springs seated properly, I'm going to tighten up all my shock and quad shock bolts in the rear. Once you've got all 4 corners of your coilover kit installed, you can set your desired ride height and take your vehicle for a quality alignment to make sure everything's nice and straight. And that's going to wrap up this review and install for the SR Performance adjustable coilovers fitting your 1994 to 2004 Mustang. Thanks for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.